So this single demonstration, and there are many others, we use gravity all the time to locate subsurface mineral deposits. We use it. It's used daily. Mining companies spend a lot of money getting gravimetric surveys done so that they know where to drill. If gravity is weaker, that indicates less mass under the ground. That could be an oil deposit or a gas deposit. If gravity is higher, that indicates more mass under the ground. That could indicate, precious metals, that sort of thing. So we use gravity all the time when we're searching for mineral deposits. A lot of money is spent on it, and we have been using it for more than 100 years for this purpose. The Nash Oil Dome in Texas was discovered using gravimetric surveying in 1924.
Yeah, can you give me the name of a gravimeter to look at?
What about the witchers, the people that have like the two sticks? Are they using gravity too?
No, they're not, sir. So a Lacoste FG5X.
Well, I thought you said that you need gravity. I thought you guys said that you use gravity.
That's a not. Guys with sticks aren't using gravity, sir.
Okay. Anyway,
and yet they find the water and
they don't. So that doesn't work. It's pseudoscience.
Yeah, I'm sure I tried to get in, but
go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
All right. So, just to harp on this point one more time, a force makes things move. A lack of a force is not a cause. If you want to say the weight is the reason why things fall down, you have to acknowledge that that weight is proportional to the object of the mass, which means gravitation describes why things go down, and we don't have another cause here to work with.
So you keep saying mass, but I don't think you realize that it's mass over volume. Like a beach ball doesn't weigh anything at the bottom of the pool unless you let all the air out. So it's not about manipulating the mass alone. It's about mass over volume.
Larry, you just said, Larry, that there's no weight, so mg, in the ball unless you take out all the air that's providing the buoyant force that's balancing out the weight. Genius! It's genius, guys!
Yeah, just put the weight at the bottom of the pool and tell me how much the beach ball weighs down there while it's full of air, like about to pop. Right?
Right, so the problem is not...
He doesn't even get it.
Right, the problem is not
an identical
the mass.
Question.
The problem is not mass divided by volume, because the amount of force provided by the mass is still proportional to mass, has nothing to do with the volume. The buoyant force does have something to do with the volume. The buoyant force is only upward, never downward. So the reason why things fall is not because anything to do with the buoyant force. The reason why things fall is because the weight is proportional to the mass.
Okay, so all you have to do to prove that is don't manipulate the relative density or the specific gravity, and just manipulate whatever you think it is, like the mass alone, and make things go up or down like I can. When I'm
some guy named Cavendish.
Right, you're adding another variable. Yeah, you're adding another variable. You're adding the buoyant force. I'm just talking about what makes things go down, which is weight. I'm not trying to add more to the problem like you are.
Can I give another
idea? I get that it's a problem for you, but it's not a problem for me because I can manipulate the cause and see the effect.
Well, when you do that manipulation, what you're doing is you're adding another variable into the problem. You're adding the buoyant force, which is not what we're trying to do. We're trying to find out why things fall, not why things float in another medium. We know why they float.
All you have to do is manipulate your cause. Manipulate your cause.
So we know the buoyant force being upward means that buoyant force has nothing to do with things going down.
Can I try a different approach, Larry?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to ask a simpler question. Why do things bend? Let's assume you have something fully rigid as an I-beam and you place it on a table. Why over time matter creeps or bends? And you can measure it. You have no forces. You have if you
What are you talking
lay
about?
objects, if you lay objects flat, partially in the air, partially on a flat surface, let's assume, why do things bend?
Well, the lack of buoyant force. You're talking about metal plates. Those are very heavy compared to the atmosphere. So the atmosphere isn't going to provide enough buoyant force to hold them up. So there is going to be what you guys perceive as what you call downward force or weight that's bending the material.
What do you mean buoyant force?
Okay, so the weight is proportional to the mass, not the volume.
So if you were to take that metal and like blow it up and throw it in a pool of water, it won't go all the way down, right? It'll float. It's called a ship, right? It's because it is volume over mass. Yes,
I'm
yes, ships
placing
float. Yes, yes, ships float.
Right, you're adding
no.
more variables to your problem, which is to add buoyant force instead of describing
Yeah.
why things go down.
Yeah, I'm trying to talk about something simpler. Take any object, place it half in the air, half on something solid holding it. Over time, any object will develop a deflection or a bend because of gravity without any external forces beside gravity, of course. So how do you explain that with a buoyancy, medium, whatever you said?
Okay, well, I got to address the first guy first because there's two of you guys asking me questions. So I'll take your guys'
Okay.
compound questions one at a time. So the whole thing about me adding variables and it being a problem, yeah, when I talk about the variable of mass over volume, it's a problem for you guys because you guys can't demonstrate your cause without manipulating my cause. That's why you brought up a vacuum, which would be manipulating the medium. And then when I address the effect, your guys are like, yeah, but why does it go down? Shit just goes down. I don't know why. Why do things go up? Shit just goes up. Maybe because you didn't spin. Hold on. Maybe because you didn't spin them, because if you spin it and then let go, shit will fall sideways for a minute. But then the lack of buoyant force will make it go back down. So the whole thing about you guys, all you have to do is manipulate your presumed cause, and you don't have to have any arguments with me at all. I won't even argue. I'll just take a look at what you guys are, presuming your cause to be, but you can't just baselessly assert that it's gravity. You guys are like rubbing gravity labels all over everything. Go ahead.
Okay, well, the problem is when you add more volume to the object, you are manipulating a different variable, the reason why things float. What we're asking is, why do things fall? Which you said, I don't know why. That's fine. Everyone else seems to be able to use that kind of knowledge, which is the weight is proportional to the mass of the object, has nothing to do with the volume. Now, if you want to talk about structural engineering with the other guy, you can do that too. But we use the mass of the materials being used to determine what the stresses are on that material.
So yeah, I didn't say I don't know why things go down. I said because of a lack of buoyant force. And then once I explained it, you asked the question again. So I guess you're looking for like another reason why things go down. And the real answer is
Because when
nobody
there's
really
nothing
knows.
there,
Bro,
Larry,
did
the
you
answer
think
is
it was like in the middle of my sentence, bro?
Larry, the
Are you
answer
guys
is you're
afraid again?
violating Newton's laws, Larry. The answer
Are you
is
afraid
if there's
again?
nothing there, Larry. If there's nothing there, Larry, there
So you
should
guys
be
are
no
afraid?
movement, Larry, because of
Why don't you
Newton's
let him
laws.
finish
So,
instead of
Larry, are you
repeating his
now
name
saying
over
Newton's
and
laws are
over?
invalid?
You just talked all over him, bud. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Let's
Wait a
try to
minute.
not talk over each other. Larry, can you finish what you were saying, and then Melodic, please respond.
Right. So there could be multiple causes to this thing that causes things to go up and down. I'm saying, show me your presumed cause. I'll wait. Just don't manipulate buoyancy or density like you tried to smuggle that in with the old vacuum drop test. Thanks. I'd appreciate it.
I'm not smuggling anything in, Larry. I'm stating I have a sphere with nothing around it. There's nothing physically around it. There is no buoyant force because nothing that can provide buoyancy is there. Right? So Newton says it should remain stationary. So, Larry, why does it go down?
You have a ball in a vacuum? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, you manipulated the fuck out of the relative density between the object and the medium that it's in, which is my claim. So why are you manipulating my claim to demonstrate your presumed
stop
cause?
yelling at me, Larry.
That's
Larry, stop
insanity.
yelling at me, Larry. I can promise I can yell louder. Okay? Now, Larry, I did take all the air out because I want to know why it goes down, because Newton says in the absence of nothing, in the absence of forces, my object should stay on the same path. So, Larry, why does my object go down?
Because you manipulated the relative density between the object and the medium that it's in, creating a partial vacuum. That's what.
Larry, there's no forces. There's no forces on my ball because there's no buoyancy that you keep arguing about.
Right,
Why
so it
does my
causes it to
ball
go
go down? What force, Larry? You keep yelling about me interrupting you. Here you are interrupting me. What force, Larry, goes down?
That's your claim. It's weight. That's
No,
what makes
no,
things
Larry,
go
that's
down.
Newton's claim. Larry, this is Newton's claim. Do you not
Okay,
know
well, prove it.
Newton's law of inertia? Do you not accept Newton's law of inertia?
I don't. We're not talking about Newton. We're talking about the cause of
Yes,
things
we
going
are.
down.
We are talking about Newton because we're talking about forces, and forces cause accelerations, and accelerations are what causes something to stop having zero velocity. So, Larry,
Okay, well, just manipulate your
Larry,
cause.
what force is acting on my ball in a vacuum chamber for it to go
Is this-
down?
Is this a question proof? Can you just, provide me your
No,
cause?
I've asked you the question multiple times. There's what force is on my ball in a vacuum that's causing
That's a
it to
loaded
go
question.
down? No, it's not a
Loaded
loaded question. It's not
Yeah,
a loaded
it's like
question.
saying,
It's
how
just
long
the
have you been
It has to
doing
consequences.
move
life?
down.
Larry,
There has to be a
it's
force
just
involved.
the consequences of Newton's laws. If you don't like them, just say you don't follow Newton's laws, and we can stop taking you seriously as a physicist.
I'm not a physicist. I never claimed to be a physicist. I'm just a guy talking about physics. So if we could get back to the
Right,
cause,
so you're a physicist.
which,
So anyway,
whatever,
so do you or do you not
I
believe in
never
Newton's
said
laws?
that I
And
was a
can you or can
physicist.
you not? Can you or can you not? You're doing physics. You're a physicist. I'm sorry you don't agree with that definition. That's my personal definition.
Yeah, you're
if you don't like it,
delusional, dude.
I'm
What the fuck are you
sorry.
talking about?
Anyhow's it, there's a ball. There's no forces on it. It goes down. What force is acting on my ball causing it to go down? Larry.
Space
whatever
time.
your presume of weight is, what's causing the weight? I don't know. Tell me what you're.
So you
Tell
have
me what you're
nothing,
claiming it is.
and you disagree with Newton's law of inertia. Okay, thank you, Larry. I'm glad
You're
we've gotten to
putting
the
words in
point
my
where you
mouth.
disagree with Newton. No, Larry, I'm not, because you said there's no force acting on it here, which is just incorrect. I've asked you what force, and you still don't have an idea of a force, let alone you just said whatever your interpretation is. Larry, I'm not asking for my interpretation. I want to know what you think is causing it to go down.
I've already discussed it at length, and this is the burden of proof reversal fallacy.
No, you have not,
I'm going to
Larry.
ask you to
I
not
haven't even
interrupt.
asked you for a burden
and
of
all
proof.
you have
I
to-
asked you for what makes it go down. Like you keep talking about. I'm not. I just want your idea. It doesn't even have to be correct. I'm not asking for any
So
proof.
how many
Just
times do I
what
have to
makes
say
it
the
go
lack
down?
of buoyant force? How many times do I have to say the lack of buoyant force?
Because
until
that
you get it?
doesn't make sense. A lack of force doesn't cause things to go down, according to Newton.
It does
So
if it was holding things up.
therefore, Larry, I'm talking. Don't interrupt me if you're going to do that to me. You know what I mean? So again, if you disagree with Newton, you disagree with Newton's laws, Larry. So if you
Okay, I'm
disagree
gonna
with Newton's
respond.
laws, I really don't think you have a leg to stand on about your buoyancy.
Yeah, you don't sound that
So let's-
confident in
let's
your
say-
gravity.
Let's say that I have an electromagnet, right? Got it hooked up to a battery with a switch on it, and I pull up a piece of small steel, right? So it's levitating because the electromagnetic force. Now, if I were to turn that magnet off, the electromagnetic force would stop holding the piece of steel up, and it would go down. So that's another cause of things going down. So
Right,
you
right,
can
Larry.
say
Right,
that you
Larry.
believe in
Larry,
gravity.
Larry,
Hold on,
Larry,
hold
you
on,
pause.
hold on.
Hold on, real quick.
Yeah, I'm
That's
just trying
not
to
the
get
cause.
Larry,
So
you
if I
said so in
don't
my
hit the
model, Larry.
switch,
Larry, in my model, when you
what's-
hit the
what's
switch
holding
and
it
you
up?
turn it off, Larry, in my model, when you hit the switch and you turn it off, gravity acts and it goes down. So Larry, again, I'm asking in your model, if the ball is suddenly freed, say it isn't electromagnetic and it's being held up in the vacuum chamber, and I flick it off, what force in your model causes the ball to go down? And remember, Newton says velocities don't change unless a force acts on the ball.
or stops acting.
No, that's not what it says, Larry.
So if I hold up a rock
Nin does
and
not say
then I
that.
stop holding up a rock, I know he doesn't say that, but I'm adding to it. So if I'm holding up a rock and then I stop adding that
I'm
force to
adding
the
to
bottom
it.
of the
So we're
rock,
not following Newton's law.
Hold on,
Got
if
it.
I could
You're
just-
not a
if I
real.
could
You're
just
not a
finish.
serious person.
okay, if I could just finish without being interrupted, like
Right.
nonstop. Okay, so this is real simple. If I'm putting force on the bottom of the rock, is that what's causing it not to go down?
I mean, the electromagnetic
You're putting force
from your
against
hand
what?
on the
The
rock.
bottom
That's
of the
counteracting.
rock.
Yeah.
That's counteracting the weight of
Putting
the rock. That's
force
causing it to
against what?
spin.
It has
So
to be against
if I
some other
stop
force.
applying that force, then it's going to go down because I stopped applying a force.
No,
right?
it's going to go down because the gravity is acting upon the rock.
Okay, prove it, because I can show that I can
I
let go
have.
of the rock and cause it to go down.
Are you listening? Hold on,
So
hold on.
manipulate the
Can you hear?
gravity.
Can you, Larry? You said prove it. You said prove it. I'm proving it. Did you hear my keys drop?
I mean, oh my god. I mean, can we just? I mean, the energy's changed in the room completely. Can I ask? Yeah, can I, Doofus? Can I ask you a question? So, to my limited understanding, all objects fall at the same rate in a vacuum, regardless of mass. I would have thought that would have been a good pointer. There's some things acting on them. Some things acting on all objects, right?
Right, and
Sorry,
as
change-
to so what Larry says is that not having a force counteracts something else is a cause. No, we have. If you're applying an upward force to make it not fall, there's still another force that you're countering that makes it fall. That's the thing that's the actual cause.
Yeah, you got to prove that force not being proven to anyone satisfactory. And in a
Objects
vacuum,
fall
and
when you
in a
let go of
vacuum,
them. That's
in a
it, right?
vacuum, the heavier object always hits the ground first. In a
No, it
vacuum,
doesn't,
they don't land
Jin.
at the
It
same
doesn't,
time.
Jin.
They
Yeah, and
don't
according to
land
you
at
guys,
the
it's
same
not
time.
even a force.
They don't land at the same time. That's for
So-
sure.
Wait a minute. Doofus. I mean, you seem like a smart guy. Do objects fall? Is it? I thought there was an agreed upon average that all objects fall at the same rate in a vacuum.
Agreed upon average is bullshit. Agreed upon average is nothing. In actuality,
Jin.
the heavier object will always.
It's an
hit the
observation,
ground.
Jin. It's not nothing. It's something we observe to happen.
It's not. You don't observe that. That's where you're wrong. If you do the test correctly,
We definitely observe things fall.
The heavier object
don't do
will
this
always
crap, Jim.
hit
This
the
is
ground first. Always hit the ground first. Always. They don't land at the same time.
Yeah, my daughter wants to say something to the room real quick. Here you go.
Take a bowling ball, for example.
What?
Yes. If you throw it, it will throw in the air, but there's a counterforce that hits it to make it fall to the floor harder.
No,
Right.
not at all.
If you throw it up, you
That's not
apply the
true
force
at all. That's
upward. The
rubbish.
thing that it wouldn't fall if there wasn't another force going down.
No, there's nothing at all. It's going to go down because the air can't support it. That's all. It's weight.
Jin.
That's God's natural.
Yeah, okay, that
order.
doesn't make any sense. That's no
That's God's
physics
natural-
agrees
what
with you,
your daughter
Jim.
just said
You're just
doesn't make
making up
any sense.
nonsense.
Jin,
Your daughter just made up a whole lot of diarrhea there. That was. Sorry,
Well,
that was.
No, no,
wait,
she definitely
Jin's an
has
engineer,
observed the
guys.
bowling ball fall to the ground.
Yeah, right. So there you are.
yo, Jin. Can
Hey,
you look
parlez-vous,
at my
parlez-vous?
stream for a second?
Sorry.
Can you look at my stream so I will
I am
explain
not-
or
I am
give
not-
example?
I am not
Look
here
at
to
his-
look
look
at
at his
Totally not
screen.
going to work.
Well, I just wanted to say that if you put that bowling ball in a pool of mercury, it'll float.
Yeah, there you are.
Yes, because you're adding a buoyant force, the upward force that will counter the thing that makes it go down. So
Which
having the
demonstrates
buoyant
my
force,
cause.
which makes it go incorrect, because having that buoyant
happens to
force, which
gravity?
makes it go up against some other
What happens
force,
to gravity?
means the thing that still wants to make it go down is the actual cause.
There's nothing making it.
Well, just
there is
manipulate
nothing
that cause and make the bowling ball go up and down. If you manipulate your
Yeah.
cause, you can make the bowling ball go up and down like I can, right?
Yes.
Yes, that's
and
exactly
I
what.
had
Hold on, that's
described
exactly
it-
what the. That's exactly what the Cavendish experiment does. That's exactly what PhD Tony brought earlier as far as a gravimeter. If you put mass distributions outside of those objects, it changes which direction they move. Forces are applied based on the masses around them.
Is that why you guys always ask me why don't things fall sideways? Is because of your Cavendish gravimeter thing or whatever? Because you expect things to actually fall sideways without spinning them? I'm just curious, asking for a friend.
Okay, the
Demonstrably
reason why people
do
say
fall
that is
sideways.
because the density of the air around any object in air is less above the object and more below the object. If you don't have a force to make it go down through that air, the buoyant force from the air would make it go upward. We know that doesn't happen for most objects. There must be another force which makes it go down.
Tell me an object that if you put something
Yeah.
more dense under it, that it's not going to float to the top. I mean, a medium,
Larry.
sorry. Tell me a medium that if you put an object less
Okay,
dense in it, that it won't float. Go ahead, I'll wait.
So, as
But
I mentioned,
this
it is you adding another variable, which is the buoyant force, to
You
your
made a claim.
problem. That is
Made a claim.
up to this point. It's not a claim. We know the buoyant force on any object in any medium is always upward. That's what the buoyant force is. You are not describing why things fall by saying there's an upward force.
When you said in most cases, like 60 seconds ago, what do you mean by that? Are there some cases where this doesn't happen?
When you have a buoyant force which counters gravity, and it counters it more than gravity, then things will go upward. That's why we're trying to ask, absent the buoyant force, what makes things go down?
So you want to answer a question with a question. I got it. I mean, I wouldn't want to back that claim up either, but at least you could like say, yeah, you know what? In all cases, if you put an object in a medium, the object is going to go up or down depending on the relative density. I wouldn't say in most cases. I would never say that.
That's not true. That's not true, sir. You can have a neutrally buoyant
That's
object.
incorrect.
Well, then that proves
more-
my point
more
that it's
importantly-
going to go
No.
up or down because of the buoyancy.
If something
More
isn't going up
importantly-
or down, if something isn't going up or down because it's neutrally buoyant, then your point is contradicted, not verified. You claim that things
Right,
go up
the
and
buoyant
down.
force is upward.
You claim that
So-
things go up or down due to buoyancy, but if there's something stationary in a medium, it is not going up and it is not going down.
Okay, I would like to respond to that.
Yep,
So
the
you're
buoyant force
claiming
would
to
be
me,
equal to the weight.
hold on, bro. You're telling me if we finally tune the buoyant force to where a balloon or any object in a medium is floating halfway in between, that's not good for my argument? Somehow you think that that's bad? That if we tune my presumed cause, that we can get it right dead center? You think that's helping your argument
No,
somehow?
I am saying that your previous statement that objects go up or down depending on buoyancy is a false statement.
Then
It
why
is
is it when I
not
tune the
true.
buoyancy? Then why is it when I tune the buoyancy just right, I can make an object in a medium go up or down? Why is that, Captain?
That does not mean that all objects go up and down. We just established the existence of objects in media that don't go up or down. This is
Like what?
imagine a blimp in the air at its maximum cruising altitude.
Oh, well, that's because they finally tuned the buoyancy. It's gone up, right? Because you tuned the buoyancy. If you were to tune the buoyancy back down a little bit, then it would go down. That's my argument entirely.
Yes, but your argument can be correct and your statement false, sir. Your statement that everything goes up or down depending on buoyancy is false. It's just categorically not true. And further to this, I have demonstrated that I can manipulate mass around a gravimeter and accelerate the proof mass in the gravimeter. So what you asked for, the demonstration that you requested, manipulate the cause the acceleration, that's been done. So I don't understand. So we've done what you asked for. You asked for us to manipulate the cause. We manipulated the cause. We showed that density and buoyancy weren't the cause of this acceleration that was being caused by masses outside the object. And you're still going on about it being buoyancy and density. It isn't. We kept those constant.
Okay, so you kept the buoyancy and density constant by adding a child who is mostly water, which is pretty fucking dense, nearby, and then you could read results by adding density to the nearby object.
We added mass nearby, and that mass had an accelerative effect on the proof mass in accord with Newtonian theory. I don't know what else to tell you. But the density of the proof mass and the density of the medium in the instrument were kept constant. They were not changed. So the object was not moving. The object was not moving in response to any change in the buoyancy of the medium surrounding it. So now you're saying that if I introduce a mass outside, it can affect magically. This affects buoyancy somehow. That's what you're saying.
Well, I think what I'm saying is we're going to have to agree to disagree and let the audience decide for themselves whether it's mass only and not volume that moves things up or down. But then eventually they're going to drink a glass of water with ice in it, and then they're going to be like, well, shit. So
Well,
it's
see,
for
the problem with that idea, Larry.
Well
The problem
done,
with
yeah.
that idea, Larry, is there's a ball in a vacuum chamber, and if 0
in the
equals
vacuum
MA,
chamber, that wasn't a very good experiment.
can I talk,
because-
Jin? Thanks, Jin.
No,
I'm
you
so
cannot
glad
talk
you
at
came
the
in here to
moment.
talk
You're
with me.
talking a lot.
Come on,
But
Jin, let's go. Trust me, I promise you I can be much more stubborn than you. I was in the army.
Nah, you can't be.
Yeah, I
guarantee
can,
you
Jen.
cannot
I
be
promise you I can be more stubborn than you while I'm sitting here. Don't you worry, Jin. I'll be right here the whole time, Jin. Thank you, Omni. You're great. So as I was saying, Larry, Newton says that there has to be a force in order for something to fall. I have my ball, it's falling. F equals ma. If my A is non-zero, then my F can't be 0. Because my M's definitely not 0. My A can't be 0, so my F can't be 0. Make sense? So there's a force that's making it go down. So which one in your model is that?
All right, I'm going to unmute the Jin. Do we have an answer to which what force that is and why it goes down? No. Okay. All right, Jin.
All right. Okay, yeah, right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, I was just going to reiterate what I said earlier on. We know that the heavier object falls first in a vacuum. We know that. It's been tested so many times. To your blue in the face, and you're blue in the face now, guys.
You still haven't given me the force that caused it to go down in the first place. So until then, I really don't care.
Yeah, we don't care. We don't live on a globe. Natural order ensues. Things lighter than air go up. Things heavier than air go down. Natural order.
Well, that's not true at all.
Nothing magical.
I'm pretty sure that a gondola cabin is definitely heavier than air, and it goes up.
What is a gondola cabin?
A gondola cabin? Do you not know what a gondola is, Larry?
That's why I asked you. What is it?
Well, let's use a different example. Are planes heavier than air?
Yes.
Planes?
So,
We're talking about aerodynamics, right? By creating the aerodynamic force around the wing, it's going to create lift.
Well, see that the claim that was made was things heavier than air don't go up, and planes go up, and they're heavier than air.
I said objects, right? If you're thinking
it wasn't you, Larry. Larry. Life isn't about you. This wasn't directed at you, Larry. Life's not about you.
You're horrible. Why do you do that?
Dude, my wife don't even scream my name that much, man. Am I hitting your spot, bro?
Like,
No, I'm just cutting you off at the path because nobody was talking to you about that argument. You're wasting your oxygen.
Melodic, stop. Okay, so Larry, did you want to respond? I'll make sure you get a chance.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Basically, I can't just keep repeating the same thing over here. It kind of gets boring. So I'm trying to leave it up to the audience. Maybe someone else could jump in and talk about it, but I'm kind of getting bored with it because I keep asking for a cause and I just keep hearing the word gravity, which means weight.
These guys invoke mathematical concepts, these things that don't exist. They say that they're affecting things that do exist. So space-time doesn't exist because it's not matter or space or time.
So did we ever figure out why down?
No, we still haven't figured out why down because I don't have a force. I don't have a force that pulls it down, so it can't go down. According to Newton, Jin, I'm talking. According to Newton's laws, it cannot go down because there's no force.
Okay.
That's not
I
true.
would tend to agree with
That's
that,
not true.
obviously, but
You're misrepresenting Newton's law. Things go
Okay.
down because they're heavier than the air. That's how God created this earth.
Jin,
Things lighter
you ready?
than air go up. And
well,
everything
okay,
Jin?
goes
we've
up
got God
Jin,
did it.
has an
We got
ending.
Jin, are you ready? All right, cool. Is the mass of the object 0? Yes or no?
He's not gonna know.
Sorry, say that again.
Is the mass of the object 0? Yes or no?
What the mass of the object is not.
Is it
depends on the
0?
size
Yes
of it.
or no? It's a very simple
Obviously,
question.
it's not zero. It's not zero.
Okay, cool. Got it. So is its acceleration 0? Yes or no?
The acceleration also is not zero because when you drop it,
Okay.
obviously it's going
Cool.
to accelerate.
So
to the maximum
according to
drop
Newton's
rate.
second law, according to Newton's second law, the net of the forces on the object is equal to the product of the mass and its acceleration. So if the product of the mass and the acceleration isn't 0, then the net forces on the object cannot be 0. So there's a force acting on my object. Which force is it?
No, there is no force acting upon your object at all. Nothing.
Okay, got
that we
it.
can
So you
put our
don't
hands
believe
on and say that's the force.
you
No,
don't
unfortunately,
use
no.
you don't
Again,
use
no, I'm
Newton's
sorry, I'm not
laws.
going to accept that.
You
Wait,
don't
let him
use
finish. Let him finish. Let him finish.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm not going to accept that, but you can carry on.
Right, you're right. So you don't use Newton's laws, and whatever you believe is not in accordance with Newton's laws. Thank you for admitting that.
It's got nothing to do with Newton. This is got nothing to. Sir Isaac Newton didn't agree with the mass attracting mass anyway. So that's why. I'm not
yes, because again, Sir Isaac Newton came around in the 17th century. But I'm not talking about Sir Isaac Newton's view on gravity, am I? I'm talking about Newton's second law.
I'm talking about Sir Isaac Newton not agreeing with the gravity thing anyway. That's what I'm talking about.
That's fine. I'm not talking about gravity. I'm talking about Newton's second law. Is Newton's second law valid or not? You've said that it's not valid, Jin. Therefore, you don't follow Newton's laws. That's fine. I don't care. We're just going forward with this knowledge in hand.
To follow, by the way. Yeah,
Thank
Newton
you, Jin.
is not anybody to follow. In the first place, and I disagree with the way
Did I say I was following him? Because I said I was using his second law.
We don't live on a globe, and the reason why gravity was evoked, created out of thin air, was because you're living on a ball that doesn't exist. So it's all null and void, as I keep telling you. When you build it,
I'm not even talking about a ball.
Whatever you build is
talking about a ball
null
other
and
than the
void.
ball in the vacuum chamber, but I haven't been talking about the shape of the Earth.
Hang
to
on,
be honest,
Melodic. Let me say, what Jen is actually saying is physics doesn't work because Earth is flat. That's it.
I wasn't talking about Earth flat or not. I was just going. This is what Newton's
that's
second
what
law
Jen
says.
said. That's what Jen said, though.
Hey, Jim.
That's where
Wanna
it came
see a
from. It came
presentation?
from a false premise, the globe.
I'm
That's why
just
it was
glad that
evoked.
Jin can admit that he
Gravity
doesn't
before
use Newton's laws that have given him the modern world that he is so much enjoying.
Yeah.
So
We
it's
don't,
sad.
we don't use Newton laws everywhere. That's correct. We use
Yes, we
some
do.
places, not
Yes, we do.
everywhere.
Everywhere. Everywhere Newton's laws are
Not
involved.
everywhere. No, not
I use
Everywhere
Newton's laws when I make
Space, for
soup.
example, where we
You
can't
know
go
why?
to. So let's stop
I
lying
use-
already. I've done you already.
Larry.
I
Done
use
you up like a kipper.
I use
There you go.
Newton's laws to
But
make
the
soup.
point is
because-
this. Whatever you build upon a false premise, whatever you build has to be seen none and void. So it's none, null and void. You're null and void with your ideas. Till the day you prove that the Earth is a globe that is spinning, hurtling to the
Oh yeah, I've already done that.
Anything
You
you
missed
say
the
is
you missed the
Yo,
you missed the
Gene.
photos, Jin. You missed the photos, Jin. But that's okay.
I just want to say
All
that
right.
you flat-tards can't make soup without gravity. Thanks.
The thing that makes the soup go into the bowl is gravity.
And Newton's
And
laws.
it's specific
Yeah,
gravity that
Larry,
causes the
can
density
you-
tower.
Yo, Larry,
Oh
can
no,
you
because
explain
those
something
break,
a
Larry,
second?
when you go up into microgravity.
And more importantly,
Where is this
the only way for
microgravity that we can
the only-
go into? Sorry.
Vomit
Have
comet.
you
more
heard of the
importantly,
vomit
the only
comet,
way for
Larry?
more importantly, the only way for a density tower to sort in the way that it does is the sum of the fluids have to have more downward force than the other fluids. That's the only way that those have.
Well, I'm claiming it's lack of upward force, buoyancy.
That doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense.
got it. You're claiming the position that is not Newton's, and you don't follow Newtonian mechanics. That's fine. We
Well,
got
you
it,
don't-
Larry.
you don't need
You're
to.
off on your own. Enjoy being off on your own.
Well, to
Yeah,
be
you should
fair,
always think
to be
for
fair,
yourself. And go ahead.
Most flat earthers do not hold with Newton's laws because they don't hold with Newton's third law.
Indeed.
Oh,
So
So if you don't need it
Right,
to explain why the ice
so-
floats in the teacup, then you don't really need Newton to explain it. So why would I then invoke something that I don't need?
Larry,
Whereas you guys try
Larry.
to get us to invoke Newton,
Larry
and
said
that's
Larry.
your job. That's your
There's no
claim,
Newton
not ours.
in a cup of ice.
Can you guys stop interrupting him, please?
Larry, I wasted 5 minutes to make a drawing. Please look at my screen.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
so
don't do
sorry,
that.
sir. I admitted in the beginning that I was driving, and I'm sorry that you did not hear that.
You can?
You can
No,
send it to me,
don't.
direct message. Eventually, I'll find what's your name?
He's doing the beam on the floor
Amazing.
again, as he explained earlier. He's just doing the same thing he explained to Larry earlier.
Oh,
Larry,
okay.
And
I have bad news for you. You use Newton's laws whenever you have a glass of ice water. And anytime you shoot a bullet or a piece of artillery or really do anything when you think about it.
Yeah, even in my pictures, I use Newton laws to take the beam into account.
I was
But
asking...
wonder if...
Sorry.
Yeah, Andy, can you help me with this beam? You know, why does it bend?
Yeah. I was asking ChatGPT if it could give me something simple where we could just show, look, what else, because I mean, the first thing it gave me was the hammer and the feather on the moon. So obviously that's an issue. So
yes.
I thought
So what
there's a
I
couple of
did?
good ones on here if you want to hear them. I like this one: pendulum swing with different masses. What you need: 2 identical strings, 2 pendulums with different weights, e.g., 50 grams versus 200 grams. Swing them from the same height. They swing back and forth at the same rate. Proves gravity acts on both equally. Not about how heavy it is. It's about the pull being the same on everything. I thought that was quite good.
It's about the string, actually.
That is a good one.
The length of the string.
Well,
the reason why the
if you
length of the
change the
string,
length of the swing,
right? The reason why the length of the string is the dominating factor is because what's making the object go downward is equal to both objects.
I just wanted to say that somebody brought up the vomit comment earlier. So the object, let's say the man or woman in the airplane, right, they're stuck to the bottom of the airplane because the airplane is climbing. And then when you remove that, upward force at the bottom of the airplane by making the airplane go down at a very rapid rate, the object is going to be moving towards equilibrium until the airplane gives that upward force again by leveling off or inclining again. Sorry for interrupting your new conversation.
Which is why it's called microgravity. Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, but that I want to make one more thing very clear because Larry, this is about the 3rd time you've done this. When you say the word equilibrium, that implies that there are 2 things equal and opposite.
Right. So the equilibrium in this case would be the upward force, right? Well, he's saying that that's somehow proof of. I'll let him answer.
Yeah, the upward force and the downward force.
How many types of
Yeah,
gravity?
so there has to be a downward force in order for that to be at equilibrium.
Okay, prove it. Because I can definitely prove my buoyant force, because I can make things levitate under the right conditions with the relative density.
That is
I
exactly
don't have
the
to prove
same
it
thing.
because it's already in your statement.
Can you?
You said
That-
there
that
is equilibrium. You said there is equilibrium. That means there is 2 things equal and opposite.
Yes, may I
Okay,
make a
so
point?
go ahead.
go ahead, Tony.
Okay. Saying that you can use buoyancy to manipulate something going up and down is exactly the same thing as saying that I can pick a pen up and I can move it up and down. It doesn't say anything about what's causing the downward acceleration. you have taken a second force, whatever, and you were making this point with the plane earlier. Planes are heavier than air, but they can fly because there's an aeronautic effect, an air pressure effect. Just because there exists an upward effect, an upward force, doesn't explain the downward force. And just saying, I can lift things with buoyancy, therefore, things fall down because of buoyancy, is not any more valid a syllogism than anything else. I pick things up and I put them down. Therefore, gravity is because of picking things up and putting things down. No, that doesn't follow. That's not a valid syllogism. That isn't how logic works.
All right,
Well,
so
y'all
I'd
know
like to
y'all know
respond.
how gravity works on the subatomic scale either.
Just
So
real
to ask anybody for complete definitive answers, just
Yeah, just real fast. I was accused earlier of adding extra variables to complicate things. And, it was the Globers who added the variable of aerodynamics. So I just want to let the record show that these people are doing that which they're accusing me of doing, when I've been on the same variable this whole time talking about the relative density between the object and the medium that it's in. Thanks.
So
Except that
If
we
you
have
have an aircraft in
demonstrated we
flight,
have
if you have an aircraft in flight, the aircraft is what's giving you that other variable, which is lift. You're ignoring that.
So Larry may not know a great deal about how airplanes fly. It's not my specialty either. But I do think that if you can't explain why things would go down, you have a problem with
Your claim.
with your theory.
Yeah, I
that's
agree.
it.
You guys should
Simple as
totally
that.
explain why.
Well,
You guys should demonstrate why things go
I
down.
mean, if you're going to invoke
Yeah, we
space
did,
time
though.
to answer why things fall, then you're invoking something imaginary that's really untestable.
Yeah, we don't talk about
Incorrect.
space time when we're talking about airplanes
No, I
flying.
want to respond to this. I want to respond to this specifically because I have explained to Taylor on multiple occasions the evidence we have in the laboratory for the existence of space-time, and now she's here again pretending that those
Space-time isn't a real
conversations
thing.
did. You say that,
That's
except that
literally
we can
not.
experimentally verify that it is. So,
Yeah,
shut
I don't
up
care. I
with
don't
this
care what the
claim.
tone you're using, sir. Can you
I
calm
don't care
down?
what you
You're
think at
upsetting
all,
me.
Jim.
Calm
Shut up.
down.
No, I'm not going to calm down.
Taylor, hold on, Taylor. Finish up, Tony.
Oh my
Okay, this is deliberate intellectual dishonesty of the highest order. You've had this explained to you, you've had the evidence presented to you, and you are still here making the same fallacious claim, demonstrably false assertion.
We've got it.
Did she agree with you? Did she agree with you though? If she disagreed with you the whole time, then it's not intellectually dishonest. It just means that she doesn't bow down to your authority. So, ma'am, did you agree with him last time, or were you still in disagreement?
No. I mean, I've never heard anybody really say space-time is something tangible, a real physical thing. It's conceptual. Used to describe the way
except,
that
we can
properties happen.
Let's
But
create a straw
I haven't
man.
heard
Let's
the
create a
argument
straw
that
man.
it's something actually real.
Oh man.
And wait,
So what is your Taylor? What is your category? What is your category for real, Taylor? What makes something real to you?
Yeah, being able to manipulate it and physically observe it.
Okay, cool. So space-time is real. Thank you.
We can demonstrate the existence of gravitational time dilation.
Can you measure that curvature to us, please?
Yes,
that curvature.
we can.
Show us that
Jen,
spin.
hang on,
and
Jen,
again,
hang
something.
on. Stop right
Show
here.
us the Coriolis
So
effect.
we can,
Okay?
yes.
Thank you. You can't do
So
anything.
we can to stick on Taylor's point, because yes, we can show you all of those things, Jin. We can measure gravitational time dilation. That is a predictor, and we can show that it is in almost exact agreement with the theory of Einstein, predictions that he made more than 100 years ago, before we had any of these instruments available to us. So we can demonstrate the consequences, and that is a consequence of space-time curvature. Saying that space-time curvature isn't real is just a lie.
Tony.
So the Lorentz.
Wait. I want to go in for a second, then I'm going to let Jen go. Tony, real quick. I don't think that Taylor has a standard of evidence that you can meet with your evidence. So I don't think that's ever going to work. All right, I'm going
Jim,
to
can I
let.
please get in
That's a
front of you?
different form of, then that's a different form of intellectual dishonesty.
Well,
That's just
whatever it
science
is, I just
denial.
don't think that you'll ever have the you know, you'll never be able to get around the idea that space time is an intangible like radio waves, and you know,
It's not intangible though. We could directly manipulate it with math distribution.
Yes, I know.
But
I know that. but
regardless, it's not Tony's fault that
Listen to the
Taylor
people who
doesn't
can't
accept.
prove their model.
I'm just asking him to.
Yeah, the Glovers are spiraling. Forgot about
Can I get
Jim.
in?
No, I
Yeah, listen to the
Jim?
Glovers. They can't even prove their model, and listen to them. Listen to them. Ladies and
Jim,
gentlemen,
may I have your
not
talking
able
time?
to prove their globe. Remember that. Carry on anyway.
Yeah, I just want to say real fast, he was talking about, time dilation or the Lorentz contraction. And the whole idea behind the Lorentz contraction is the whole reference frame is contracting. So if you were to try to measure it, well, the thing that you're trying to measure it with, let's say a ruler, it's also contracting, so you can't measure it. So
Hey, Larry,
that's kind of one of
not
those.
correct.
That's kind of one. Oh,
Larry.
so tell me about the
Larry.
Lorentz contraction. Does the whole reference
Larry.
frame shrink in the Lorentz contraction? Is it the whole reference
Larry,
frame?
Larry, can you answer me
No.
one question? Can you answer me one question
So you're
directly
gonna
related
answer
to your
question
question?
with a question.
Larry,
You interrupted
hold
me to
on.
ask me a
Listen,
question.
you didn't even let me get it out, Larry.
Okay.
All right, Larry.
I'm going to let him ask his question. I thought you
Which reference frame is preferred in relativity, Larry?
That has nothing to do with his question.
Yes, it does. It does. It literally does.
They're all arbitrary.
Why don't you just tell him?
This is an
You guys like putting your reference frame on the sun because you like big balls, right?
Taylor, hold
This is
on.
an entire.
Tony,
Larry.
Tony, hold on. So, Melodic asked a question. Did you want to answer it, Larry?
Larry also asked a question.
I asked the question. Does he want to answer it? I'll answer his if he answers
I
mine.
want to answer Larry's question.
Okay.
Okay. Larry,
Here we go again,
gravitational,
ladies and gentlemen. We're off and running another lie.
gravitational time dilation has nothing to do with Lorentz contraction. Lorentz contraction is special relativity. Gravitational time dilation is general relativity. It does not depend on the velocity of the object. The clocks that are being used when we measure gravitational time dilation are at rest in the laboratory reference frame. There is no motion-induced time dilation. So your entire argument about Lorentz contractions and how we can't detect that, that's not applicable to gravitational time dilation. And your question bespeaks an ignorance of the entire topic.
Okay, so real quick, so Larry, what do you think that what he said was? Do you understand what he's saying there? Is that resonant with you at all?
Can I make a comment?
I want to know if that answered Larry's, if that what Larry thought of that, and then I guess you can go, Taylor. So Larry's not answering. Okay, all right. So we will never know if. So
Convenient.
just for the record, what I suspect here is that people are hearing answers that are, to my ear, correct. Going, I didn't understand what he said, so I'm just going to ignore that. Go ahead, Taylor.
So
That's
I'm
not
kind
true.
of
Basically, it
that
can't be put. Sorry,
space-time-
Tyler.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Taylor.
It was just space-time are modes in which we think, not conditions in which we exist. And he talked about it's a mathematical structure describing the relationship between matter, energy, and geometry, and said that has no independent existence. It arises from the gravitational field properties. And here's his quote. It says, space-time does not claim existence in its own right, but only as a structural quality of the gravitational field.
Okay, so do you?
I love that you have your own notepad ready for this.
So we can. Who are you quoting?
Oh, Einstein?
Which book?
No, the other part.
Which paper?
Let's see.
What are you reading from?
I'm reading from. This is the quote from Einstein. Are you disputing the quote?
Where does this quote come from? You're making a claim that Einstein said this, and I want to know in which.
Stanford.edu. Einstein. Testing Einstein's Universe is a website from Stanford on general relativity questions and answers.
So that isn't an answer to my question. When and where did Einstein write this down? You can say you don't know. That's fine. But even accepting, even accepting your quote at face value as something that Einstein said, we can still demonstrate that gravity does have the structure consistent with space-time curvature. That's the point. We can experimentally verify that the predictions from general relativity that space-time is curved, we can prove those predictions to be correct or accurate, right? We can demonstrate that repeatedly. So to claim that it's just an idea and it doesn't really exist and we have no evidence for it, or we're just throwing out an idea, is not accurate. And you are misinterpreting quotes from somebody in order to make a point that they would never have agreed with.
I don't think anybody
Just
really
wanna
thinks
point out-
the fabric of space-time is real. It's just kind of like described to see like the effect of gravity. It just shows like the properties, but if you
I'm
think
somebody. I'm real.
it's a
I think it's
physical,
real.
tangible thing.
I think it's real as well.
I want to hear your evidence or your sources for saying that.
Before we get too far in
Tony
that,
showed it to you.
I want
Where's the
I want
source?
to explain how we got to this point, which is we were asking the question about weight on an object, why things fall, and we went to space-time curvature because nobody wanted to talk about the weight of the object.
Yeah,
Well,
I
yes,
tried to curtail that, but it went on anyway.
Well, anybody,
Taylor-
if they're
Yeah,
gonna say
so
they have a
you guys all
understanding.
took the bullshit bait from the flat earthers to follow them down on this relativity topic instead of addressing the actual
Well, that's because
thing we're
the
trying to
relativity
have them
topic
address.
is at least a little bit more interesting than trying to get them to understand Newton's laws for the third time. But Taylor,
that's
I'm a
really good
person.
point, actually.
I
That's a
believe
really good point.
space-time is real, and
Doofus, I agree
the
with
evidence
Doofus,
has
I do.
already been given by Tony.
What's it made of?
If we could just debunk the fact that it's clearly not density and buoyancy, why things are falling to Earth, that would be a start, right? I mean, we're not going to get to space-time curvature. That's not going to. It's just not realistic, is it? Right?
And
It
Andy
has
is
been
100% correct. Andy is
Yes,
100% correct.
Yes.
In this
Yeah, so
conversation,
What's it made of?
it was.
It's falsifiable, my claim, right?
So
So if I say
And it
this
was.
is going to happen, right, then you should be like, oh, I tried that and it didn't happen. Like I drained the water out and the ice is still floating near the top of the cup where you put your lips. That'd be an example, right?
So, Larry, what you're not understanding is you don't know
falsification.
why buoyancy happens. All right, that's why the falsification for it comes from the fact that you don't have a reason for it to go down other than maybe what Jen said, which is God said down.
Look, I've been here for like a week, and I try not to trigger you guys by talking about science, right? But essentially, when we're talking about cause and effect, we're talking about a null hypothesis, right? So if you guys can demonstrate, hey, this is what happens when you claim this and this doesn't happen, like if you could demonstrate that, that'd be great. But every time you guys bring up like vacuums and things falling, I'm like, guys, this isn't a good argument for you. Or
Larry,
fine-tuning
Larry,
buoyancy.
Real quick,
Larry, I'll get right on
hold
that, Larry. Larry, I'll get right on that
You don't-
once you disprove Newton's laws. Got it?
Wait a minute.
Right, and Larry, you don't have Larry, you don't have a reason for why things are
Super
falling.
disrespectful when somebody's talking to laugh in the middle of their sentence. That's super disrespectful, Doofus. Like, what is wrong with you?
Okay,
Yeah, I didn't claim anything about
I
Newton.
started after the other guy finished thing.
Sorry,
Oh,
I didn't claim
Doofus
anything
okay
about
with
Newton,
that,
so
right?
I don't have to
No, you were
back
laughing
up
in the
something
middle of
that's not my
Larry's thing.
claim.
I heard you.
Yes, you did, Larry. We just went over this. You claimed that Newton's laws have to be added to. Please show how that works. I would love to see it.
Okay, I manipulate the cause and we see the effect. The water
No,
makes the ice go
Larry.
up and down. Yeah. And my
No,
answer,
Larry,
I
you
get to
didn't hear my
answer how I want to.
question. You're answering a different question. That's not the question I asked. The question I asked was, can you please show me how you modify Newton's laws?
You're asking me to manipulate your claim or modify your claim? That has nothing to do with what I'm claiming.
Larry. Larry,
I'm
you
not
said
claiming
you
anything
said
about Newton.
Larry.
This
Larry,
dude
I'm
is
talking here,
force-feeding a
Larry.
claim
Larry,
down my
I'm
throat.
talking right
Yeah,
now,
but ask
Larry.
him a question.
Don't
Larry,
forget to say, "Oh God,"
Larry,
whenever you scream my
Larry,
name.
I'm talking to you right now. Larry, you
My
said
gosh.
that you add to Newton.
Front.
What do you add? Please show me.
Volume as a possible variable, why things go up and down. That's what I've added.
That's not new. We already know what the buoyant force is. We have formulas for it. It depends on the weight of the medium, which, by the way, is a downward force that you fucking forgot about.
The weight of the medium, you mean you're talking about specific gravity? Because it's the relative density between the medium and its weight and the object and its weight.
So
Okay, use specific gravity to use the specific. You need to use the specific. So your claim is that specific gravity is it now. Specific gravity does not tell you how much force will enact on an object. It does not tell you the buoyant force. What you need to do, Larry, is you need to provide some way for you to have an object fall absent another medium. And additionally, why it's going to go down through a less dense medium.
No, all I have to do is
Can
demonstrate.
I just say that this is a complete misdirection? We have instruments. We keep the relative density of the proof mass and the medium in the instrument constant. We don't allow them to vary. We control those variables, but we can vary the acceleration inside by moving things outside the instrument. Therefore, the relative density between the proof mass and the medium is not what's causing the downward acceleration.
Okay, well, you guys keep making them arguments all you want to, but I met two flat earthers at work today that I didn't know were flat earthers, and the free range flat earthers just keep popping up everywhere. I don't think your arguments are working.
Yeah, because
so Larry, can
a lot of people
that
are
doesn't
unable
address
to
anything.
recognize a good argument. It's true.
So is there any flat earther that wants to see 3D presentation? It may help, maybe. I don't know.
It won't help.
You're pushing for this, but flat earthers don't want to do that.
Are you still
I've
stuck on
shown
the whole...
Taylor the same evidence about space-time curvature 4 times in presentations. It doesn't stick. They don't care.
Tony, you see what I put on screen?
Physical.
I'm
Physical,
literally
what's it made of?
Taylor, I'm literally showing you how we use it every day. If you
I'm
take
not
a
saying
second
you don't use it every day. We're looking at effects. We need to manipulate the cause to see if it's actually
So
there.
I don't think I think until
Taylor.
we figure out what kind of experiment Taylor would accept, I don't think there's a point in showing, trying to explain the evidence. There's tons of evidence for it. It's really good evidence. But if someone's decided they're not going to accept it, they're not going to accept it.
It's a mathematical model that describes how space and
but you
time are
keep asking.
and how they're affected by mass.
Taylor, you keep
what is
Taylor, you
causing
keep
that?
asking.
That's the question.
Okay, Taylor, you keep asking what is it made of. You do realize that question means you don't know what you're arguing against.
Well, I'm told space-time is a real thing instead of just a conceptual visualization of what we're actually seeing. Like if it's
And
just,
nobody says
a
it's made of
mathematical
matter.
model for what we're actually observing, if it's like a post-diction, you know what I mean? In the sense that this is what we see and
It
this is
is
what we're
not a
going to
post-diction.
Taylor, it's physical. If it's not physical, it's metaphysical.
That's wonderful, Larry. Thank you.
How
The
is space-time
material,
not a
the
Did you say if it's
space-time
not
itself,
physical, it's metaphysical? Holy shit.
Yeah, right, because he's ignoring the fact that space-time is still physical anyway. So
no, we're talking about metaphysics, not science.
Space-time is not made of matter. So asking what it is made of means you don't know what the fuck you're arguing against.
You're saying
Understand
it's physical.
that part, Taylor. You don't know what you're arguing against.
Physical? If it's physical, what's it physically made of?
Again,
is light
you don't
made
know what the fuck you're arguing against.
Photon. Okay, so you don't even know. So you said it's
Yeah, it's
physical,
made
but
of
you can't
space
tell
and
me what it's
time.
made of.
That's why it's called space-time.
Right. It
Okay,
is a
so
physical property of
objects
space and
have
time.
tangible
It's
existence.
space-time.
So it is
Guys,
physical.
No, they don't, Taylor.
Are you going to say that physical means
Guys,
it's not?
This is a pointless conversation. Okay, I'm just telling you, it's pointless.
Yes. Okay, but to just to quickly respond, Taylor is conflating two different terms: physical and material. The physical means that it exists in physics. Of or having to do with physics. You are trying to turn it into it being material. They're not the same thing.
That's what you guys do with trampolines in the colleges.
Quantum waves are not made of stuff, right? But they are physical.
There's an easier example, PhD Tony. That is
Okay.
electromagnetic. You already know magnets and magnetic fields can cause physical interactions. Those magnetic fields are not made of anything, but they are physical.
Yeah, what is a magnetic
Give me
field?
your where?
Well, I mean,
yes.
I mean, to some extent, there are force exchanges in quantum, in quantum electrodynamics. So, in some senses, they are material.
Not gravitational forces. Those don't get exchanged.
So if you
Missing
give
in
me a
action.
second,
I got a question. What is length made of?
Concept. Thank you.
Length of
Yeah,
the
does
concept.
space-time exist in 3D space, or is it like fourth dimensional?
Well,
Wait, hold on.
He's trying to make it material.
This is great. I gotta actually get this point out real quick because that was good, Professor Parks. You guys said if it's not physical, it's metaphysical. So is light metaphysical?
Well, it's certainly not tangible. I mean, there's heat transfer, but other than that, it's not very physical at all, right?
That's absolutely not true.
So it must
That's
be
absolutely not
metaphysical
true.
according to you. Oh my God!
It's absolutely not
It's not
true.
a
There's
real
a thing called. There's a thing called.
So it doesn't make sense to say it's metaphysical. That's
It's a descriptive property. A length,
Well,
like
what-
length and width. That's a descriptive property. Nobody would say length is a real thing you can go touch and we can prove
That
exists.
doesn't
No,
that
it's a
doesn't mean that it's
descriptive
metaphysical
property.
though.
We
It
can
is.
measure it, though, right?
It is
I just want to point out that they're accusing her of conflating the physicality and the non-physicality, but they trick children by saying, look, the fabric of space-time is just like this trampoline. And when you put a bowling ball in the center, look what happens. That's just like gravity. But they're the ones saying that flat earthers are in here
yes.
trying to do that.
He's
But
lying.
actually, it's
You're lying.
them.
Classic
Wait a minute. So they
misunderstanding of
don't
like
put a
basic
trampoline?
philosophy.
They don't put a trampoline in the colleges to trick the children?
They do explain. They do explain.
They don't say that the trampoline is a perfect representation of what gravity does. This is a demonstration just for the low-level introduction to the concept. It does not mean that gravity is a trampoline.
I mean,
yeah, there
I
is
don't think-
explanation in the level of kids, and there is how physics works.
See, I got to talk to you guys like second graders when trying to understand this. Is space-time curving space or some fourth dimensional bullshit?
It's all four at once.
Space-time,
Like 3D
space-time, space-time is by definition four-dimensional. There are three spatial dimensions and one time dimension.
once again,
Right.
not-
So is it affecting 3D space?
I said all four at
you-
once, dude. Come on, man. It's doing all four coordinates all
Yeah, that doesn't. You can't separate out space. They're all part of the same thing, mate.
Just remember, it's the Globers
it's
saying
weird.
that
It
it's a
just sounds
fabric.
like a horror movie.
It's a fabric, right, Globers? But we're the ones conflating.
Larry.
Yeah, I have some
if you
questions.
can figure out what makes it go
Nobody
down.
thinks it's
Wait, let me respond to that. Larry, if you can figure out why the direction is down, then we're having a conversation. If you can't figure out why the direction is down, then despite the fact that it is down and you don't know why, then it's clear you don't really care.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
think you understand it, Omnivore.
It is down until there's something that's more buoyant in the medium that it's in. Then it's not down, is it?
Well, wait a minute. When we have a vacuum chamber, then it's always down, right? Nothing goes up in the
because
vacuum chamber.
You removed all the buoyant force, which is my
Yes.
claim. Thank you for manipulating my cause to demonstrate
Yes,
my
yes.
effect. Thank you.
Yes, I know. You think
dumbass.
You think that's a knockdown argument, Larry, but it's what you're saying is just dumb. In the absence
Right.
of buoyant force,
If
why
we
does it
remove
go
if we
down?
remove yeah, if we
Why
remove
now?
a conflating variable, if we remove a conflating variable, the addition of a buoyant force, which we know is upward, and we remove that variable, things fall down. Why do they fall down? Not because the buoyant force isn't there, because that's not a cause. The lack of something is not a cause.
So once again, Larry, if you're if to be a serious person, you need to figure out why down. If you can't figure out why down, well, I guess we know what that means.
I have
That's
a
just a
link that
baseless
says
Or at least
assertion. I'm
acknowledge
not
there's a downward
serious.
force involved.
That's just
You're
weird for you guys to make that baseless assertion that if I can't explain why things go down, even though I've just given demonstration after demonstration of why things go down, therefore you guys aren't going to accept those demonstrations because I put the word specific.
They don't know
Why are
either,
you
dude.
laughing? Why are you guys
Yes,
laughing
Larry,
through what I'm
yes.
saying? I'm
If
just
you
trying to
can't
get.
explain
Because they
why
have the
things go
same
down,
issues in their
you're
model.
If I could just get through it without being interrupted, that'd be great.
Okay.
So yeah, just because you guys don't accept my demonstration, I don't know what to tell you. I'd get it if you didn't accept my explanation, but you guys, you're not just rejecting the explanation, you're rejecting the demonstration, trying to say
your
that if some other...
demonstration's fine.
Incorrect.
Your demonstration's fine. It just doesn't prove anything.
Oh, so you do accept that things go up and down because of relative density?
No,
or
no,
specific gravity?
no. Because we understand what buoyancy actually is. You have to figure that out.
Larry, you need to be quiet long enough to have this explained to you. Buoyancy explains why things go up. It is an upward acting force. It is always an upward acting force. It explains upward motion, right? It does not explain downward motion. And you're saying, look, if I take away this upward force, the thing that was lifted by it falls down. Yeah, that's true of any upward force. It's true of aeronautic force. It's true of electrostatic force. It's true of the weak force or the strong force. It doesn't matter, what the upward force is. What the question we're asking is, why does it go down? And saying it goes down because I took the upward force away, that isn't an explanation. That
They don't
doesn't
have an
explain
explanation
what's
either.
happening.
It's not an explanation, but if Larry is not interested in figuring out why things go down, then I don't think there's. I mean, he doesn't need to. He can be totally happy with the explanation.
I've been asking.
About space-time is how it's conceptual. It's a conceptual model. Okay, combining 3 dimensions of space with the 4 dimensions of time.
Dragging it back in
So
space
anybody who
time.
has, and by the way, your definition for physical, Tony, no, I'm talking.
You're breaking up, doofus.
I'm talking. And your definition for physical, Tony, I want you to cite that. Because everything I see, and even in physics, is saying that was something that we can tangibly measure, that with material, anything that can be physically firsthand observed, not by second effects.
Oh,
Yes,
It's the same. Oh God, guys, this is great.
She was talking to me.
So,
okay,
just want to know.
right, but nobody was talking when I started.
Sorry. Off you go then.
But okay, just real quick. When you divert to relativity, you're trying to divert to something as though it disproves the argument that we're having about why things go down. In relativity, weight is still a downward force. Changing the topic to relativity doesn't address the problem.
Nobody fully understands it. That's the problem. You can't act like you have a fully working model. and he doesn't.
Tyler, I want to show you example. Are you open to seeing example of something that we can measure and we do?
Well, yeah, there are plenty of those. Length, time. These are things that we can measure.
No, Tony,
Tony. That are not material.
Tony, can you give me? I'm sharing screen. I have a simple example. I have a simple example. I have a green beam on top of 2 purple beams that are welded to the ground. I can put a device and I can measure the deflection of the green beam in the middle. This deflection is happening because the world isn't perfect and we have gravity. How do you explain this deflection? do you see my screen?
Yes.
Explain what deflection? Your deflection from the topic?
So my claim is like that.
He's streaming.
I'm streaming. I have 3 beams. I have 1 beam on top of 2 beams that are connected to the floor. Okay. Always in reality, this green beam will bend in the middle after a time, and I can hang a device that will measure the displacement from the initial height that I can predict using gravity. So I'm asking why it happens. Let's assume if there is no gravity and the downward bias can be controlled.
Look, nobody
Hold on,
here
I
is
got-
saying there is no, weight to things, right? We all agree to the effect of the things bending down. The question is why, right? That's what we're arguing over. So if you could just manipulate space-time and make those things
And you don't have an answer.
Hold on, I didn't get to finish last time. I didn't get to finish last time. I just let it go.
Let it finish. Let it finish. I
Thank
know
you.
where it's
Okay,
going.
so you guys are claiming that it's the mass, right? I'm claiming that it's the weight, and if you were to make 2 long giant pools of mercury, that those steel beams would not be bending in the middle; they'd be floating on the mercury. Thanks.
Oh my god.
Okay, so this is a claim.
May I ask?
Yeah,
may I
so
ask-
the
may I
problem with
ask
that is
Larry-
you're adding a new variable, which is the buoyant force.
May I ask Larry a series of questions, please?
That's the same variable that I've been talking about. I don't know what you mean by new. Maybe it's like doublespeak or something.
May I ask Larry a series of questions?
The buoyant force is upward. You don't have an explanation for why it goes down.
Okay, Larry, imagine that I've got a piece of steel, and I surround it. Well, let's make it a piece of iron. I surround it completely with osmium, right, which is much denser than iron is. Does the iron experience a downward acceleration against the osmium? If so, why?
Because the buoyant force of the atmosphere is not enough to hold it up until it reaches equilibrium by seating in the liquid that does hold it up with enough buoyant force.
But the iron isn't in the atmosphere.
Wait, can I get you to...
the atmosphere. It's shielded from the atmosphere by the osmium. It's completely surrounded by osmium. So
it's in a liquid.
No.
Is it
it's
submerged?
solid osmium. It's solid osmium. I'm asking why the solid iron presses down against the solid osmium, given that the solid osmium is more dense than the solid iron.
Okay, so you said that it's sitting on top of a solid when my argument was that
it's surrounded. So if you haven't got the test case clear in your mind, imagine a block of iron. Okay? That's 1 inch. It's a 1 inch cube, let's call it. Now I surround it with osmium, another inch thick layer of osmium all around.
So you encased it in like a suitcase.
I encased it, not in a suitcase. I have poured molten osmium around it and let the osmium solidify, and now it's completely surrounded by osmium. Okay. So does the iron exert a experience a downward acceleration because it is completely surrounded by something that is denser than it?
Well, you say the iron like it's...
So the relative density there, the relative density is that the osmium is more dense than the iron, so your claim should be that the iron does not produce a downward acceleration, does not experience a downward acceleration, right? That should be your claim.
Not my claim. That is absolutely not my claim. Because my claim is that if you have an object in a medium, the relative density between the object and the... Hold on, you don't know my claim, and you're telling me what my claim should be. And I'm trying to clarify my claim, and you think solid is a medium for some reason. I don't understand that. Could you please explain to me how a solid is a medium? Maybe for electricity, but not for objects.
Okay, on long time scales, nothing is a solid. You apply enough stress to it, it'll deform and flow. So a solid is an idealized thing. Nothing is actually a solid. So given enough time and effort, there should be motion, right? So I'm asking you again. Why is there a downward acceleration on this bit of iron? It's surrounded by something that is denser than it. So there should be downward acceleration.
Okay.
Why do you ask a question and then keep going?
Because he really doesn't give a fuck what I have to say. So the thing is, the iron is no longer just a piece of iron, right? It's encased in something, and that has made it a new system, right? So it's now iron and that other element that I'm not familiar with. And what do you say, magnesium, or what would you call it?
Osmium.
Osmium. Okay, so yeah, whatever that is. So now you have like a system, right? So you just added a little bit more buoyancy to it, but it's not enough for the atmosphere to hold it up. I guess you could try to float it in mercury, but I don't know if it would float because I don't know about that other medium. But it depends on the relative density between the system, or the object in this case that we were talking about, the iron wrapped in something else. That's what's going to make it go up or down. Go for it.
What's up the question though?
So this tells me that your concept of physics doesn't work internal to systems. You've got to isolate systems and then say, well, from the outside it works like this, even though from the inside it shouldn't work like that. In your model, this thing is surrounded by something that is denser than it. It should not go downwards.
Well, it's encased in a solid. It can't go anywhere.
It's encased in something that is approximately solid, but it's a. I don't think your argument works, right?
Well, I don't think that this thing is approximately fluid.
I didn't say it was approximately fluid. I said that it was viscoelastic.
Okay, well, it's a solid.
No, solids aren't viscoelastic. Solids are elastic.
So this iron wrapped in something else, is it in a solid state, or plasma, or gas, or liquid?
Again, the definition of solid here, we're getting a bit weird about it. But I don't understand why you're arguing that relative density isn't important inside a solid. Why is relative density not important inside a solid?
Because every time that I've said the word medium, I assume that you guys realize that I was talking about a fluid and not a solid.
But viscoelasticity is a thing, right? The Earth is viscoelastic.
I'm not saying that it isn't. I'm just saying that you sound like you're describing a solid, and then when I asked you to clarify, you said that it was weird that I'm asking you to clarify because my mediums are all fluid. I've never heard of a solid medium when talking about specific gravity. In fact, I think they usually use water in specific gravity because of its fluidity.
Yes, they may do. I'm asking whether or not your model can be used, for instance, to explain lava flow within the Earth, or any of the other physical processes that we know happen under the surface. Like, why do these materials end up supported by less dense material? If your model is correct, the less dense material should uniformly fall down every time.
Unless it's buoyant. But I was going to say, I don't have a model. I'm not the one who invented specific gravity or recognized it as something that happens everywhere they go. So, it's not really my model. I mean, you guys should be like agreeing with me, except for you have a really sacred cow that you guys call gravity, and that allows you to not agree with what's right on your nose. It's like when the Democrats take a 20% issue and Trump pivots to the 80% issue, and then he gets elected. You guys are like always pivoting towards gravity regardless of what reality states, like basic biology.
Reality states that we use gravity every day to find mineral deposits under the surface. That's what reality states. So, What's your idiotic claim now?
Can you send me your source about
I've already-
space-time being physical, and then the physical definition being pertaining to physics only?
No.
You can't
If you
send me a
can't
source
find
for
it,
that?
if you can't find it on your own, you suck.
Oh, I've already looked.
But
Okay, so I'm gonna
quite
start
frankly,
telling people that.
your lack of internet,
If you
your
don't
lack
find
of
it on your own,
intellectual
you suck.
honesty,
Okay.
your lack of intellectual honesty on this topic has finally reached the point where I've got no patience for you. Go and ask your idiot questions to somebody else.
You suck. Okay, got it. Thank you. I'm gonna start using these when people ask me for sources. Thank you.
I like how it was skipped over that sources had been provided 5 or 6 times.
What'd you say?
I did not stutter, Taylor.
I couldn't really hear you. Sound like you're kind of far away from your phone.
No, that's because you're busy sucking.
Thank you so much, Tony. I didn't catch the last thing I said.
So Taylor, speaking of citations, you said you
Well,
cited
that's
something in
now.
the chat.
It's what happens when they don't have sources, guys. They start insulting, calling names, saying you
Taylor,
suck.
can you hear me?
Oh yeah, Professor Parks. I saw it. It was in
Shameful.
the it was in
Shame
the
on
upper
you.
one. It's in the weird one. NASA
And
still
the others
responded
in
to
there.
it. I'll ping you at it.
I appreciate it.
Definitely, Taylor. Who's going to be
But
the
clearly,
first?
all these guys are agitated defending gravity because they know it just sounds dumb.
Yeah, if somebody wants me to see something, you need to tag me in it. In particular, space-time being physical is what I'm looking for.
Go to a physics textbook and look up space-time, Taylor. Tell me what it says.
So your definition of physical just means pertaining to physics? Where's that?
Yes, that's what my definition of physical means.
And where does that come from?
From the shape of the word, perhaps?
Oh, really? You think that all the shapes of the word just mean that that's what it means?
No, I also know the meaning of words, and that's what physical means in this context. So, it doesn't mean material. As you
What does it
pointed
mean?
out, it just
I didn't
means
say
it
it only
means.
meant material, but
You just gave a definition of what it meant not 10 minutes ago that I don't dispute. And I gave you examples of things that we can measure that are not material, like
just wanted
length,
to know what you
like
said, that's all.
time.
Anything relating to matter,
But
energy.
so again, we get back to the fact that I have explained things to you about 8 times
No, I don't
now.
need you to explain. I just wanted to
I'm
I
still
think Tony just has a
learning
really
this.
poor understanding of the argument.
I just wanted his source. That's all I wanted. And if anybody has it, just tag me in it, please. Thank you. Since he can't provide it, I guess.